Hello, my name is Joe Bierer and I'm with Bierer Meters. I'm here in our training yard in Blythewood, South Carolina, and today I'm going to talk about our VDAH300. Bierer & Associates manufactures the VDAH300 in accordance with ASTM standard F1796. The VDAH300 is considered a Type 2 Style B voltage detector. Type 2 means it has a numeric display with or without an audible alarm, and Style B designates that it can be used outdoors. The VDAH300 is a linear logarithmic analog voltage detector. The V stands for voltage, the D stands for detector, the A stands for analog, and the H stands for hold. This device does have a hold feature. The VDAH300 has a 5-position selector switch. The first position is the off, which is used for storage in transit. The second position is a on. The third position is an on as well with a backlight. And the fourth position is on with a hold feature. And the fifth position is the test. Bierer highly encourages you test the device before and after each use. The first test is the 5-position selector switch, and you have to physically hold the meter in the T in the test position. Make sure you get near full deflection. If you do not get a full deflection, we encourage you to check the battery in the device. The 9-volt battery is located right here behind the live line tool fitting. Just thread this off. Has a 9-volt battery inside. Go ahead and replace that if you don't get a full deflection. If you still don't get a full deflection, we encourage you to send the device in for repair or calibration. Also, before and after each use, we encourage the user to actually use a true known voltage. You can do that by using the device here that we manufacture. It's referred to as a handheld power supply. The part number is HHPS. This device will output a voltage, a known voltage, to our voltage detector, our VDAH300, and should deflect near 7 kV. So again, we encourage you to use this before and after each use. Simply turn the device on to the first position, hold the button on the handheld power supply to where you have a green light, touch the end of the probe, and again the needle should deflect near 7 kV. The VDAH300 is a linear logarithmic meter. So what that means is on the analog scale, the device is linear from 0 to 40 kV, and from 40 kV to 300 kV is logarithmic. So Bierer manufactured this tool to be linear logarithmic for the reason that the tool can be used in distribution voltages and transmission voltages while still maintaining a single-use device. Rather than having 2 devices or 3 devices, you can use a single device to cover distribution potentials and transmission potentials. The kit comes standard in a waterproof box. There are a few accessories that come standard with the VDAH300. We have what's called a straight probe, has a 1/4 20 thread, threads on to the end of the meter probe here. This is mainly used for overhead direct contact with overhead conductors or bus. Also our hook probe, again a 1/4 20 thread, threads into the end of the probe, and this is used for hanging the device on a conductor. That way it becomes a hands-free device. Also our plastic universal grip all adapter. This threads on to your live line tool fitting here. This way you can use a universal stick with the spline fitting, or a grip all using the hole here. You can actually use a shotgun stick. Also with the tool, optional accessories again is a handheld power supply that I just mentioned. Again, the part number is HHPS. This can fit conveniently inside the box if ordered with it. And also our 0-ohm extension. This can come in different lengths to where you can actually incorporate it in a larger box. but the 0 ohm extension is just threads on to the end of the device here using a 1/4 20 thread as well. Did I hit that? Our 0 ohm extension has a 1/4 20 thread. It threads on to the end of the probe, and this is used mainly in underground applications to make sure the meter housing is free and clear of grounded surfaces or other potentials, and I'll demonstrate that here shortly. Also in underground applications, we have bushing adapters. We have a small interface and large interface bushing adapter. Again, a 1/4 20 thread threads onto the end of the probe, and again this is used in situations where you may pull an elbow on a feed through, and you actually insert this into that bushing to take your nominal voltage. All right, in our first demonstration, what we're going to do is we're actually going to test for de-energized and energized. We have both situations behind me here in our pad mount transformer. This device is 13.8 phase to ground, so 13,800 volts phase to ground. So I should get some potential on my display, plus or minus about 30% as worst case scenario, using the VDAH300. And again, I want to test the device before and after each use. So again, I want to test it by turning it to the T position. I want to see a near full deflection on my scale. Then I want to turn the device to the first on position on my selector switch. Take my handheld power supply, since this is my known voltage potential, and I'm going to test it through my bushing adapter into the tool. So I'll press it on and see a deflection near 7 kV every time I touch the end of my bushing adapter. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and test for de-energized and energized. We have both scenarios going on here behind me on our pad mount transformer. And I have the proper accessories on here. So I have my bushing adapter threaded onto the end of the probe. I have my hotline tool adapter here, so I have my universal grip all adapter threaded onto my liveline tool fitting, and a universal stick attached to that. Bierer highly recommends whenever you're using a single point device such as the VDAH300 that you do not use metal accessories and a large metal surface out here on your stick. This metal surface here is relatively small, but just remember, the more metal you add to the end of the device here, the more it's going to couple and the higher the reading. So I'll go ahead and check for my de-energized first, and I want to turn the device to the first on switch position. So I have it in the first on switch position on my switch, and I go ahead and put it in the bushing where I have a cable stood off on a feed through in our cabinet behind me, and check for de-energized. Make sure that cable is de-energized. So I have the bushing adapter inserted all the way in, and notice the needle stays on 0, displaying 0 potential. Remember, I've tested this device before I used it. Now I want to test it after I use it. Okay, I've already tested for de-energized. I want to verify that the tool is working properly and make sure the needle's not broken. Something happened between testing it the first time. Again, I still have the tool in the first on switch position. I'm going to depress my HHPS and make sure I get a needle deflection every time I touch the end of the bushing adapter probe. So that verifies that the tool is working properly and that cable stood off is de-energized. All right, now I'm going to check for energized. I remember I tested the tool before I'm about to use it. I've got it in the first on switch position, and I want to insert it in the bushing over here that I know is energized. And I'm going to get a nominal voltage reading. Remember, the scale is linear logarithmic. This is approximately, again, 14 kV phase to ground. Notice my reading is a little over 14, in between 14 and 40 kV. So I expect the reading to be a little bit high, again, because it's close to that ground plane. So this bushing is close to a ground plane, the reading is going to get higher. So I can alleviate some of that inaccuracy if I thread on my 0-ohm extension. As I mentioned, using that adapter, it's going to remove that housing away from that ground plane, and I should get a more accurate reading. I want to check for energized again, but now what I've done is I've threaded on my 0-ohm extension and I've added my bushing probe adapter. But again, I want to test this whole series of accessories along with my voltage detector before I check for energized. Before, if you remember, I just had my bushing probe adapter, but I did not check my 0-ohm extension. So I want to verify that this accessory is functional. So again, I still have my tool in the first on switch position. I have my handheld power supply. I want to touch the end of the bushing probe adapter and watch the needle deflect. Okay, now that I've verified the tool is functional using all my accessories, I'll go ahead and check for energized again, and I should get a more accurate reading using this 0-ohm extension, again by removing the housing close to a ground plane. Okay, we've tested the complete unit here. We've tested all the accessories with the device to make sure that the device is working properly before we use it. Now I'll go ahead and insert it into the bushing again. And notice the reading is lower on the scale now. It's further away from the 40 kV. So it's again closer to the middle of the 14 and 40. And you'll notice if I actually move my hand closer to this scale, I can actually make that reading get higher. So again, not just getting the device away from the ground plane, you want to make sure your body is also far enough away from the tool so you don't start coupling with the tool and adversely affect the reading. So if I move my hand closer, you'll notice that reading will get higher and higher. I can actually make it go up to 40 kV or higher. So again, we don't want to short stick it or have my hand close to the tool. I want to have it back approximately about 2 feet or so or further away. Okay, now we're going to use the VDAH300 in an overhead application. Again, it's 13.8 kV phase to ground. That's our nominal voltage in our training yard. Again, I want to put our VDAH300 in the first on switch position. And again, I want to test the tool before and after I use it. So I want to make sure the tool's functioning properly. I hold it to the test or T position. Make sure I get a full needle deflection or near full needle deflection. Again, if I do not get that, replace the battery. If the battery does not fix that problem, again, we highly recommend you have the tool repair and or calibrated. If I turn the tool in the first on switch position and again use our handheld power supply and touch the hook probe adapter, which is what I'm going to utilize here today. If I touch the hook probe adapter, I should get a needle deflection. Make sure the needle deflects and goes near 0 whenever I remove the handheld power supply. The VDAH300 was originally developed for a transmission utility. So the first on switch position is just a passive on. As I mentioned earlier, the second on switch position actually incorporates a backlight, so the tool can be used in nighttime conditions or low light conditions. And the H position is a hold feature. Bierer highly encourages the utility or user to only use the H switch position on 40 kV or higher. The reason being is that it's a capacitive charged hold feature. So in other words, if I put it on a low potential like this 13.8 phase to ground, it's going to take a long period of time for that capacitor to charge. So the user may think there's no potential on the line because of that long delay. So again, we highly encourage the device to only be used on 40 kV and higher in the hold switch position. So we will not utilize that switch position here today because again, it will take a long time for the device to charge up, and I can't really demonstrate the light, the second on switch position, simply because we're in daytime. So again, I'm going to put it in the first on switch position, and the VDAH300 is more accurate on overhead applications versus underground. It was designed more so to be used in overhead applications, so we should see a more accurate reading, or a reading closer to 14 on our scale. So as you notice, using the VDAH300 in overhead application, the readings closer to 14 kV is demonstrated by the needle deflection. That concludes our demonstration of using the VDAH300. If you have any questions or concerns, you can contact us at 803-786-4839, or you can email us at customer_service@bieremeters.com. Thank you, have a great day, and stay safe.